Hello everyone. Almost to this day, 8 years ago, Chris and Tony Suvorek were talking about loading, unloading of cargo, and they mentioned machines and NPCs.
Steve Apollyon asks, are there any plans on cargo loading of the bigger ships such as the whole series of ships, and is the loading at a space station or even planetary going to be automatic, or will we have specialized small cargo loading ships similar to Argo to load manually if we choose to, similar to the Argo?
Yeah, we have talked about the fact that we don't want the larger ships to basically just park it, click the button, and it's done. That these larger ships that have vast quantities of materials would actually take a significant period of time to unload and may result in missions for NPCs and/or other players to actually undertake. We've actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now, but we're still iterating through that because we actually want to unify some of the functionality for loading and unloading.
Like if I have a big container ship and I pull into the port of LA here at Long Beach, there's a whole setup. There's longshoremen, big cranes, and there's service, and the crew of the container ship don't actually unload the containers themselves. There's equipment that does it, and there's people that are paid to do that. And I would say that in general, in sort of the bigger sort of spaceports, you would have that same kind of setup where you would have the ability to unload the bigger ships, unload the containers. Potentially, we've talked about having the ability for players to sort of play the part of a longshoreman if they're running around in a Largo and taking off a container from a Hully and dropping it to another place and doing that, or having AI do that. And then there obviously will be cases where, which is probably a later question we have here, but there'll be manual unloading and loading of cargo where you don't have the sort of big services, like if I just had a ship and I was off the coast somewhere and there wasn't a port, then obviously I would have to be doing it myself. And so I think we've been looking at ways that you have the sort of automatic option that's the services provided.
Automatic option when appropriate, but the fidelity so that on these smaller ships you can actually, and this makes for much more interesting gameplay in a lot of times, in a lot of different cases, because you can imagine scenarios to where you need to deliver a smaller quantity, a half dozen, a dozen, specific crates of some sort of, illegal liquor or something to somebody at a planet.
I think so the answer is there will be services, but we'll also have some specialized ships and equipment for unloading cargo.
Chris, where are the machines and NPCs helping with loading, unloading our ships 8 years later? Right, we still have nothing. Nothing besides the clunky, cringe, magical handheld tractor beam that let us move containers with masses exceeding 100 tons without any problems. Nothing besides ship goes down, ship elevator, waiting, ship comes up, loaded, unloaded. Why did Tony Suvorek had a pretty comprehensive design right now, 8 years ago, but we still have nothing? Why do you lie to us? And before someone writes a comment, Tony Suvorek doesn't work on Star Citizen anymore. Yes, but Chris was there, and last time I checked, Chris is still CEO, still responsible. And then we have this, August 2021.
How do you plan to protect the player's ship from someone coming on board during a manual loading process and flying away or stowing away on board? Basically, how can players protect themselves during this vulnerable time?
Yeah, I think the bigger question is, how are you going to protect your ship and your cargo that's being loaded and unloaded on your ship?
I'm fine being responsible for my ship and my cargo, but I need keys or biometric locks. We have none in year 13. Everyone who makes it onto the pilot seat has full control over your ship. The ability to secure my cargo, to throw a weapon, and if needed, shoot a thief, cannot do this in armistice zones. Police or security forces, we have none in Star Citizen in year 13, except the brain-dead and annoying NPCs scanning our ships for contraband. Bring some friends, join an orc doesn't help, we cannot throw guns in armistice zones, we cannot shoot at a thief. And who wants to do this? Who wants to stand guard at my ship when I do the loading, unloading? Right now, this doesn't even pay enough to hire like 5-10 people, if they even would be willing to do this, which is very boring. CIG is talking about the captain, the owner of a ship, sets permission who can use what for 10 years by now. Here are just a few clips.
Now first is the captain station. This is usually the owner of the ship, and he has the ability to see what all of the others are currently doing. He also has the ability, if needed, to override one of the other stations and take control of what's going on in that position. He also has the ability to set permissions and set the security states to put the ship on high alert or at a peace state if you're in a less risky position.
Overall, like for a ship owner, we do want you to have some level of control to say, okay, I'm hiring you on board as crew, have them be another player or an NPC, and I'm going to give you access to the engineering station. I'm going to give you access to shield management, and you'll flag your crew for the different permissions that you want. That way, it'll be a bit trickier for someone to just run up to the pilot seat of your own ship, try and get in and use it, and it'll be more, well, you didn't flag him for permissions, so he's going to just rip you out of the seat, get in his own pilot seat, and start flying.
This is the exact same problem that we're going to encounter over and over and over again that we've talked about, which is, well, if somebody boards your ship, can they basically just sit in the pilot seat and go? And that's the way it is right now. But if eventually we're going to have much more of a security system concept. And so, irregardless of the fact that I allow other players onto my ship, that doesn't necessarily mean that I, as captain, have basically given them the keys to the thing.
Well,
so if I disappear,
you may not give them the permission to use the helm. They may have the permission to walk all around or use turrets or whatever, but
and so I could see,
may not have the keys to the ignition.
Yeah, I can see the captain, the owner of the ship, basically designating who can do what. In other words, if I'm disconnected, then my navigator, whether it's an NPC or a player, can basically assume control of piloting the craft. But I, in advance, basically said how I want the ship to, how I want the crew of the ship to be able to respond in this particular scenario.
We want people to be able to manage custom groups, to customize permissions for individuals, to set roles on people in those groups, in parties, to be able to set permissions on ships for people who are on your ship. What can they access? What can they get into? And so in order to house all that new functionality, we need a new UI system that's capable of doing that.
We've been looking into building this permission system for ships where the captain can assign item control to specific people in the ship. So he can, give the engineer the role to control the power plant and the coolers, and a weapons officer the ability to control weapons, that sort of thing, right? And the hope is that over time, as we add more and more depth of sort of systems gameplay inside the ships, that combined with the permission system will be conducive to more and more deep multi-crew gameplay.
I think it's very disappointing that we still don't have machines, don't have NPCs helping with loading, unloading of our ships. Especially when Tony Surak said more than 8 years ago, we actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now. Yeah, right, Tony? It's also very disappointing that we still cannot set permission. Everyone who makes it into your ship and onto the pilot seat has full control over your ship. What is this? This is a joke. CRG's solution for automatic loading unloading right now is your ship goes down ship elevator, your ship is out of sight, and an automatic magical unloading loading happens. I'm actually fine with this, but this does not work for ships like Hull C, Hull D and Hull E. You cannot land those ships extended in a hangar. Yeah, so this will never work for those ships. CRG has some funny ideas like, yeah, this will generate missions for players. They can help loading, unloading your Hull C. They can fly around and pick up containers. Are you kidding me? Do you really think this will ever work? How much money do you think you have to pay for those people? No, this will not work, Chris. Chris, people are playing games to have fun. People are playing games to escape real-life chores. Who wants to play an Amazon warehouse employee in a game? I'm looking very forward to what solutions CRG will come up with in another 8 years. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
We've actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now. We've actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now.
Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter. My Twitter account is Camural_SC.